Welcome to this deep dive, into the world of Umberto Eco's The Name of the Rose. We're not going to be, focusing on the plot or the characters today,
Right.
but rather on uncovering those like historical details and like the facts that Eco kind of sprinkled throughout the story.
Yeah.
It's like a treasure hunt through a 14th century Benedictine Abbey.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how Eco uses this fictional abbey right as a window into a very specific historical moment. We're going to be kind of peeling back the layers of the story and revealing the social structures and the intellectual climate and even like the fears and anxieties of that era.
Now, you might be picturing the monks spending their days in quiet prayer and contemplation.
Yeah.
But Eco kind of paints a much more vibrant and complex picture of what monastic life was really like.
Indeed, yeah. The Abbey in The Name of the Rose is like this bustling microcosm of medieval society.
Wow.
A place of intense intellectual activity, power struggles.
Right.
And as we discover, even crime.
Eco describes the Abbey's structure and its routines in like fascinating detail.
Yeah.
He introduces us to the concept of the canonical hours,
Right.
lauds, prime terce, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And these hours weren't just for prayer. They actually dictated the entire rhythm of the day for the monks.
It's almost like a medieval clock, right?
Wow.
Structuring like every aspect of their lives from, prayer and work to even their meals.
Right.
And the monks themselves weren't, simply praying all day. They had these like specialized roles, cooks, librarians, herbalists. It was a surprisingly diverse and intricate system.
Yeah, and that diversity really comes alive during the arrival of the papal legation.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that lavish feast that they prepared?
Yes.
Such a stark contrast to the monks' usual, more austere meals.
Absolutely. That feast is more than just a meal.
Right.
It's this carefully orchestrated display of power and hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
Eco subtly reveals how food and ritual played into, these complex social dynamics of the medieval world.
Speaking of power, the Abbey's library stands as like this powerful symbol.
Yes.
Imagine walking into this vast labyrinthine space,
Right.
rumored to hold knowledge, both sacred and forbidden.
In the 14th century, knowledge truly was power.
Yeah.
And in The Name of the Rose,
Yeah.
access to that power was very tightly controlled.
Mm-hmm.
Eco describes this intricate coded system for accessing books,
Right.
almost like a secret language. It wasn't just about protecting the books themselves.
Right.
It was about controlling the very ideas that they contained.
There's this like palpable sense of fear surrounding certain types of knowledge.
Yeah.
What exactly were they so afraid of?
Well, I think part of that fear stems from the historical context of the Inquisition.
Okay.
The 14th century was a time of intense, religious fervor.
Right.
And the threat of heresy was taken very seriously.
Eco brings that fear to life through figures like Fra Dolcino and the pseudo-apostles.
Right.
These individuals represent like a deviation from accepted doctrine, a challenge to the church's authority.
Their presence in the story, even as whispers and rumors, highlights, this ever-present fear of dissent and the lengths to which the church would go to maintain control.
And that control is like chillingly depicted in the interrogation of the seller by Bernard Guy.
Oh, yes.
It's a stark illustration of the methods that the Inquisition used to extract confessions,
Right.
often relying on fear and intimidation.
Yeah, it's a stark contrast to the approach of William of Baskerville, who embodies a much more kind of scientific mindset.
Right.
While others are quick to blame supernatural forces, William relies on observation and deduction and a healthy dose of skepticism.
Think of William using his lenses to examine evidence
Yeah.
or his logical deductions about the murders.
Mm-hmm.
He even applies this scientific approach to the study of herbs and poisons.
Right.
A far cry from the prevailing superstitious beliefs surrounding medicine at the time.
Eco is highlighting the tension between these competing ways of understanding the world, a tension that lies at the heart of the story.
And that tension is perhaps most pronounced in the mysteries surrounding the second book of Aristotle's Poetics.
Yes.
The forbidden book, rumored to hold this dangerous knowledge about the power of laughter.
Right.
This is where it gets really interesting. The
Yeah.
book about laughter.
Laughter.
What could be so dangerous about that?
Well, laughter can be subversive, you see.
Yeah.
It can challenge authority, expose hypocrisy,
Right.
and undermine rigid structures of power.
Okay.
In a world ruled by dogma and fear, the ability to laugh, to question, to see things from a different perspective, that was truly dangerous.
It makes you wonder about the Abbey's relationship with the village. something that Eco only hints at.
Yeah.
There's a sense of rivalry, of economic dependence, and even shared superstitions. It's as though the Abbey can't be fully understood without considering its connection to the world outside its walls.
Yeah, that connection speaks to the complex social and economic realities of the time.
Monasteries weren't isolated islands. They were deeply intertwined with the communities around them, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
We'll delve deeper into this fascinating dynamic in part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay.
But for now, take a moment to consider this. If the world of The Name of the Rose is a microcosm of the medieval world, what does it tell us about the forces at play during that era?
Yeah, that connection between the Abbey and the village, it's like this, hidden thread running through the story. It's clear that there's this delicate balance of power at play.
It's a fascinating glimpse into this complex relationship between religious institutions and the secular world.
Yeah.
During the medieval period.
Right.
Monasteries weren't just, spiritual centers. They were often like economic powerhouses and landowners and, even political players.
Eco hints at this through the characters that come and go from the Abbey.
Yeah.
The villagers who rely on the monks for trade and sustenance, the local lord who views the Abbey with suspicion.
Even the arrival of the Inquisition, which disrupts this delicate equilibrium.
And let's not forget the role of fear. A powerful undercurrent throughout the novel.
Yeah, the interrogation of Salvatore is a particularly disturbing example.
Oh, absolutely.
It's heartbreaking to see how Salvatore, an outsider, due to his physical and linguistic differences, becomes a scapegoat for the Abbey's anxieties.
Eco reminds us that those in power often exploit fear to consolidate their authority and to target those perceived as, different or threatening.
Right.
The Inquisition becomes like a tool for silencing dissent and enforcing conformity.
It's such a stark contrast to the intellectual debates that take place within the Abbey walls.
Yes.
William's discussions with the other monks, though sometimes heated, are characterized by this genuine desire to understand, complex theological and philosophical ideas.
There's a clear distinction between those who seek knowledge through reason and those who cling to dogma. And Eco challenges us to consider what truly defines truth and how we determine its validity. Is it through blind faith or through critical thinking and a willingness to, question established beliefs?
And the power of language itself plays a crucial role.
Absolutely.
Eco, a renowned semiotician, is clearly fascinated by the ways in which language can be both a tool for understanding and a weapon for control.
Think about the coded system for accessing the library. It's language as a gatekeeper, controlling access to knowledge and limiting who can participate in, intellectual discourse. Or consider the debates over the interpretation of scripture. Language becomes a battleground for competing ideologies, with words themselves taking on immense weight and power.
But amidst this struggle for knowledge and control, Eco never loses sight of the power of storytelling. He weaves these complex themes into a captivating narrative, constantly playing with our expectations and blurring the lines between fact and fiction.
He's reminding us that history is never a simple or objective account of the past. It's always filtered through the lens of the storyteller, shaped by their perspective, their biases, and their intentions.
The Eco is whispering in our ears. Don't just accept what you're told. Question everything. Dig deeper, uncover the hidden layers. And nowhere is this more evident than in his portrayal of authority.
The Abbey, with its rigid hierarchy, its control over knowledge, and its fear of dissent, represents a very specific kind of authority, one that's ultimately challenged by characters like William, who dare to think differently and pursue truth regardless of the consequences.
The destruction of the library, though tragic, can be interpreted as a rejection of that stifling authority.
Yes.
It's a chaotic and destructive event. But it also hints at the possibility of a new beginning, a chance to rebuild and reimagine how knowledge is shared and accessed.
Even in the midst of that destruction, Eco reminds us that knowledge can endure. Remember that moment when Adso, just before parting ways with William, stumbles upon a linguistic clue that could have unlocked the mystery earlier?
It's almost as if Eco is suggesting that even when lost or fragmented, knowledge has a way of resurfacing, of finding new paths to reach those who seek it.
And it's a reminder that even when faced with seemingly insurmountable obstacles, The pursuit of knowledge and understanding is a journey worth undertaking,
Hmm.
perhaps even one with moments of humor along the way.
Which brings us back to that forbidden book, Aristotle's treatise on comedy.
Yeah.
The idea that laughter, something so natural and human,
Right.
could be perceived as a threat to those in power is both fascinating and deeply unsettling.
Yes.
Before we get to our final takeaways in part 3,
Okay.
let's take a moment to consider why that might be. What is it about laughter that makes it so powerful, so potentially subversive?
Yeah, it's almost like laughter can just puncture that carefully constructed facade of authority.
Exactly. Laughter allows us to see the world from a different angle, you know?
To expose the absurdity of rigid dogma and the hypocrisy of those in power. It's like a release valve.
Yeah.
A way to cope with the anxieties and the uncertainties of life, and in doing so, it can be incredibly empowering.
It makes you wonder if that's why the book was deemed so dangerous.
Right.
It offered a perspective that challenged, the established order.
And that brings us back to the, larger context of the medieval world.
Right.
It was a time of great upheaval and transition. The old certainties of the feudal system were being challenged by new ideas, new trade routes were opening up.
Yeah.
And the Black Death had swept through Europe, leaving this profound sense of uncertainty and, questioning in its wake.
It's as though the Abbey itself becomes a microcosm of this larger societal transformation.
Yeah.
Caught between the weight of tradition and the stirrings of change.
And the destruction of the library, while tragic,
Right.
can be seen as a symbol of this clash between old and new.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reminder that progress is rarely, a smooth or linear process. Yeah.
It's often messy, chaotic, and marked by both loss and renewal.
And speaking of renewal, let's not forget that Eco ends the story with a glimmer of hope.
Yes.
Adso, despite witnessing the horrors of the Inquisition and the destruction of the library,
Right.
retains his thirst for knowledge and his belief in the power of storytelling.
He becomes the keeper of the fragments,
Yeah.
the one who pieces together the story and carries its lessons forward.
It's as though Eco is suggesting that even in the face of darkness and despair,
Right.
the human spirit's capacity for curiosity and learning can endure.
And that those qualities ultimately are what drive progress and propel us forward.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Name of the Rose, we're left with this, profound sense of the complexities of the medieval world. It was a time of both great intellectual ferment and rigid dogma,
Right.
of scientific inquiry and deeply ingrained superstition.
And while the novel is set, centuries ago,
The themes that Eco explores, the pursuit of knowledge, the struggle for power, the tension between faith and reason, and the enduring power of storytelling continue to resonate with us today.
if the world of the Abbey is a reflection, even in a distorted way,
Yeah.
of our own world, a world where information is abundant, but truth can be elusive,
Right.
where power is often concentrated in the hands of the few, and where fear can be used to manipulate and control,
Absolutely.
what lessons can we take away from Eco's masterpiece?
Perhaps the most important lesson is the need for critical thinking,
Right.
for questioning assumptions, and for seeking out multiple perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
In a world awash in information, it's more crucial than ever to develop the skills to discern truth from falsehood,
Right.
and to recognize the ways in which power can be used and abused.
And perhaps to find a little bit of laughter along the way.
Yes.
After all, as the Ego reminds us, laughter can be a powerful weapon against dogma,
Absolutely.
a way to expose hypocrisy. And a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can find ways to resist and endure.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through the intricate world of The Name of the Rose.
Yeah.
We hope it sparked your curiosity and left you with some, thought-provoking insights into the medieval world and its enduring relevance to our own lives.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking out those hidden gems of knowledge.